building trust with our people so that, the relationships are based first on that. Or in terms of nurturing, I would say it's kind of an ongoing thing. It's never anything special. It's just part of who we are. We always put our people ahead of us. The idea that they come first is something we really believe in. I believe wholeheartedly in that idea. And so through the course of time, I think people understand that, we are going to do our best. When we make mistakes, we'll correct it, and that we're in the trenches together, and that our goals are for their lives to be better, and everybody in our, circle of influence, I guess you'd say, who we're impacting, like customers and vendors, their lives will be better too. And we stay committed to that.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to talk about leadership from a very different perspective, and it's about nurturing relationships. And you know that relationships are the center of our businesses and how we work together and trust. But how do you actually nurture relationships? Well, we unpack that today with our CEO and founder of OpenRoad. We're with Mark Weisensee. Hopefully I got the pronunciation of that right. But Mark and I talk about nurturing relationships in a way that you can learn from this. You can see how they're doing it, how they're building trust. What are the core elements of this, and why it's so important as a company's growing. OpenRoad has made the Inc. list 4 times in a row. That means they've had consistent growth for more than 7 years. They are a 3PL. They're working in different aspects of the third-party logistics. But we share with you the core to their success from a standpoint of nurturing relationships. And hopefully you find that engaging, as I did in talking with Mark today. My job here is to be an executive coach to people that want to grow and people that want to create better leadership. For you to be the leader that your team deserves, you've got to expand beyond where you are today. Because what got you here won't get you to the next level of leadership and the next level of your company. You've got to be growing at faster pace than your company. I truly believe this. And you also want to make sure the people around you are growing. We have leadership development that we do, coaching for managers. If you have people in your team that need coaching, need to develop some skills of leadership, we have some offers for you there. I really would love to connect with you. The first next step is something we call the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation. It is a tool we use to help you measure leadership. Where are you within your team, your leadership team, and across the company in 7 different aspects? Where are your weak spots? Where are you doing well? And where do you need to concentrate as you move and grow as an organization? That's absolutely free for you. If you're listening to this podcast, just mention that you heard it on the podcast. My invitation to you here, that's the signal to make sure that this $1,000 kind of experience with me, this personalized, customized leadership effectiveness evaluation, is yours for free because you heard it on the podcast. Go to genehammett.com and schedule your call and do it today. Now, here's the interview with Mark. Mark, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Gene?
I am great. We're going to have a great conversation about nurturing relationships and what that means to your business and your growth. But before that, tell us about OpenRoad.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and thanks again for inviting me. So OpenRoad, we are a third-party logistics company. We do domestic truckload, LTL, and intermodal freight, and then we also do global forwarding. We do air, ocean, and customs brokering. And kind of a little interesting sidebar, we also have a factoring company where we concentrate in the logistics industry and purchasing invoices to help people with their working capital. And I can go into that more later, but the primary part of our business that most people know about is OpenRoad Transportation. And like I mentioned, that's a third-party logistics company. We were founded in 2004. And for the first 10 years of our existence, I was working a full-time job in construction. So OpenRoad got probably not even my 4th or 5th best. It probably got even lower than that. I gave everything to construction. It was my life. I loved it. There were wonderful people involved there. And at the time I started OpenRoad, I was still completely committed to the construction idea being my life. But not to get off on too much of a tangent, but I'm very entrepreneurial, always had that itch, needed to scratch it. Started OpenRoad without really an idea how big I wanted to get it, where it would go. And so we just started doing our thing. After 10 years, I decided to start working full time on OpenRoad, actually concentrate on it. And at that point, we had 12 employees. We were doing about 8 million in sales. And that was 2014, January of 2014. So flash forward to today, we have about 240 employees. We did 225 million last year in sales. And this year, we're growing again. We're up about 7% over last year in our actual volume. The revenue might be a little lower just because the price that shippers are having to pay to move their freight has dropped a little. So we'll see a little revenue possibly decline, although I'm not even sure of that, but our company's growing in every area. Global forwarding, air ocean shipments are up. All of our truckload, LTL is just booming. We've grown in every area, and our factoring company is up as well. So today we have built out a management structure. We put time and effort into our IT infrastructure, HR, marketing, et cetera. And in the last 9.5 years, I guess you'd say, we've really experienced a lot of growth. It's been exciting and fun. And here we are today. So I'm glad to talk to you about it and see where the conversation takes us.
Well, Mark, I appreciate the background on OpenRoad and kind of give us the history. And just to center us on this, making the ink list 4 times, not easy. Like, hopefully you have respect for that. It gets harder and harder. The math of growth on these big numbers is something everyone has to evolve and reinvent themselves as leaders, as the systems and whatnot. But you guys have been able to do it consistently over, my guess, the 7 years plus.
Yeah, at least 9.5 actually, but yeah.
I'm going back using the ink numbers because they go back 3 years.
Oh, right.
Making four times in a row. I know that we've done interviews with you and your team, with my team, researching your company, researching how you guys approach this thing called leadership. And you talked about nurturing relationships. What does that really mean, and how does that impact the growth of the company?
I guess I would start with, trust. Building trust is something that we've been committed to since the day we started. My wife, Liz, is also very involved in the company, and she plays a big role in this as well. But building trust with our people so that, the relationships are based first on that. Or in terms of nurturing, I would say it's kind of an ongoing thing. It's never anything special. It's just part of who we are. We always put our people ahead of us. The idea that they come first is something we really believe in. I believe wholeheartedly in that idea. And so through the course of time, I think people understand that, we are going to do our best. And when we make mistakes, we'll correct it. And that we're in the trenches together. And that our goals are for their lives to be better, and everybody in our, circle of influence, I guess you'd say, who we're impacting, like customers and vendors, their lives will be better too. And we stay committed to that. The other thing that makes this easy is that I absolutely love what I'm doing. So the idea of running to work is something that I literally do. Some days most days I even run out of our house to my pickup and drive into work. It's just that much fun. I'm so excited about our future, and the people who I see get to apply their skill wherever it is, however it fits into our organization, and have them see how it improves the business and their lives. Is just a never-ending cycle of opportunity for that to happen, and for me to sort of fill my cup over it, and that person as well. So yeah, I could keep going on the nurturing idea, but that's the basic concept.
I want to focus back on what you said. I wrote it down here. We put our people ahead of us. I could make assumptions about what that really means. But if you had to really describe why that's important, what would you say?
I think it's so that they know we're committed to them, that it's not just, something on our wall or a mission statement or a value statement or something that they truly believe and know, because it's true that we're committed to them. I think that it provides them with some stability and security around their job. There's never a day so also to let you know, tenure is something that we're fortunate to have. Great tenure. People just don't quit. So we get to build what I'll call long-term relationships, more than 5 years. And during that process, those people are able to help us grow in a couple of ways. One, because they're more and more comfortable that they're secure, that their livelihood is taken care of, and that their future is going to be brighter than the past. And also because they're more and more likely to share with others. And so growth comes out of that, this idea that each of our people is a recruiter. They have friends and family who may want, be looking for a change or an opportunity. And so it becomes exponential and it feeds on itself. So, we've always tapped into that idea that nurturing that relationship, building trustful long-term relationships is good for business, and it has been.
I want to interject here. You're not familiar with my work. I've been doing this for more than a decade, and I've interviewed more Inc. 5000 founders than I think anyone in the world. And I've been asking this impossible question. I stopped asking it because I kind of know the answer. But fast growth companies know that they didn't get here alone. They got here through the support of a team, and that team is very important to them. And so I asked this question to a lot of different people, and fast growth people tend to answer it differently, which the impossible question is exactly what's more important, your customers or your employees?
For me, it's employees every day. We've never wavered from that from day one. And it, by extension, obviously, the customer gets taken care of, but we're here to serve our people and to make sure they have everything they need to be successful in our business, obviously for our customer, but also for themselves and their personal life. We're not perfect. We certainly have a long ways to go to, in our minds, achieve that next level, but that's what we focus on. So it's definitely the employee.
Now, Mark's been talking about employee first, and it really is an interesting question. That question again is, what's more important, your customers or your employees? Now, that question really is meant to get to the heart of where leaders should be focused their time and energy. And it's not necessarily just on customers, it's on their employees. And if they put them first, it changes everything. In fact, I've asked hundreds of Inc. 5000 level founders this exact question, and they've said that it's employees first. The reasons vary, but most commonly it's because if we put our employees first, they're willing to put our customers first. And that is how we grow. So take that into account as you think about what you put first, what's most important, and make a choice for yourself. Inc. 5000 leaders, 93% of the time, believe it's employees first. Back to Mark. I want to go talk about your leadership principles, because it's one thing to say, we nurture relationships, but how as a leader do you do this? Like, what are the things that we would see across your organization as it relates to empowering people or holding people accountable that really honors that nurturing relationships aspect?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that there's no conversation that goes on sort of in the executive room only, or there's no part of our company that's opaque. We are transparent. So we know that people need a constant, they need information about what the decisions are. So the way I look at it is, if we're thinking about something, we want them to know we're thinking about it. If we've made a decision, they need to be the first to know. They need to know there's cash in the bank. They need to know that they're with a company that they can relate to the logic behind decisions and strategy, et cetera. So that's kind of how we start with that, that approach that you just brought up. It's really important that a person feel engaged and part of it. And a lot of times, 240 people can't each make the decision. We can't have 240 decisions, so it doesn't need to consolidate around one idea at some point. But we do ask for input from all areas of our company on major issues, especially the ones that affect their area of the company, their department or whatever. And I think through that process, it continues to reinforce this idea, hey, I'm with a company who allows me to have input, therefore I feel more ownership. I know that the work that I'm doing will be backed up by the company. There's never a harsh word. We never call anybody out in public. We only celebrate in public. Anybody's success can be, celebrated, but we don't ever correct unless it's in one-on-one closed door. And that's very rare at our company. We rarely have to let anybody go or anything like that. So I think all of that kind of feeds back into what you're talking about. It supports and reinforces that.
Mark, I'm not going to shame you because you're not familiar with my work, because not everyone has heard. But I've been doing this podcast, and I did 53 interviews with people just like you about 5 years ago that really started this new iteration of focus on Inc. 5000 level companies. And that research was what came up with that word ownership. And it came from a question that I was asking them: how do you, with your growth goals, how do you get your employees to take ownership? He goes, or no, take responsibility is what I asked them. Sorry, I had to correct my question. And a lot of people, just like you, came back and said, we don't want them to take responsibility. We want them to feel a sense of ownership. And I looked at my notes and it came up so often, and it hit me. That's what we want, is people to feel like owners. You just said the word that when we're transparent, we include them in ideas, they feel a higher sense of ownership. Is that a term that gets used throughout your culture that really binds people together?
Yeah, I would say it does. I know even if it's not said, it's reinforced in the way we act and behave. We always want people to feel that they're responsible, that they're the person that, like, let's say, for example, somebody comes up with an idea. They've got an idea to change things to make it better. It's an efficiency thing, or they want to hire someone because they think that, the additional help will allow us to do something more for our customer, improve service. We let them run with that because it was their idea. We support it. And what we find too is that it's more likely to succeed because it was their idea and because they do feel supported. And that's just a small example, but that kind of thing we try to do throughout our company. And so I don't know if it's spoken every day, the word ownership, but it's definitely how we live.
Mark's been talking about having people feel like owners. Now, one of the examples behind this is these ideas that they share. Well, if they feel like they're an owner, they will share their ideas. If they don't, they will hold those ideas back because they don't really care. It's kind of a waste of their time and energy. But when they feel like owners, they can't help but share those ideas. My question for you is, are you creating a place where the best idea wins? Not your ideas. Let me be clear. If you're listening in this, you're a CEO, you're a founder, you're a top level executive, it's not about your ideas winning. It's about the best ideas winning. Are people feeling safe enough to do this? That's my 2 cents. Make sure you answer that question for yourself before you move on. But back to Mark. You've touched on quite a few key parts in my speech when I've spoken on big stages before about ownership, transparency, inclusion, and even to the fact that the best ideas should win. So, Mark, we've been talking about nurturing relationships. I'm kind of curious, is there anything that we've left out of this conversation that you feel like is important for other leaders to know if they want to increase the level of relationships they have across their company?
I think the biggest lesson for me has always just been that trustful relationship where somebody feels safe to tell you the bad news, almost or even quicker than they would the good news. Getting to that point is easier said than done, but I believe that's critical. If somebody genuinely feels safe to bring up an area of weakness, either with themselves or something they see in the company, it's powerful. And as long as you act on it, it can keep your company heading in the right direction and constantly getting healthier and stronger. So that would be probably my parting advice.
I'm smiling on the inside. I'm in the midst of writing a book with my wife, which is, you work with your wife. It's not always an easy thing. We have to debate, and there are some things that I have to fight for. And there's a chapter on there about delivering bad news. And she goes, "Is this really necessary?" And I step back and I'm like, well, in an ideal world, we wouldn't have to talk about the need for people to deliver bad news. But here's the reality. There's people that are hiding things, that are not courageous enough to share that the numbers aren't aligned, or we lost a client, or whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
or take ownership of the fact, and they don't want to share that bad news. And I'm like, it has to be in here, even if it's one of the shortest chapters in the entire book, because we just want to make sure that this is important. And you bringing it up just kind of validates the reason why I fought for that chapter. When you look at your style of leadership, I would imagine that you've grown and evolved. Is there a moment looking back over the last 10 years that you said, okay, this really transformed me as a leader? Could you share that with us today?
If I could go back a little bit more, I'd probably go back to early when I was a manager. So it's right around the time probably when I started OpenRoad. But I was in construction, and I had a couple of superintendents, which are field managers for those people that aren't familiar with construction, working for me. And I was probably too young to have people working for me at that level, but that's the way it was. And they were different, two different styles. I learned so much from watching them. One person was high strung, and I would say even fear based in his leadership style, kind of knew it all and directed it all. And the other one was more collaborative, very smart, but also took input and created sort of consensus around an approach. Those styles, the difference became vivid one time when we had an emergency. It wasn't a major emergency, but the city called it an emergency that we were working for, and we needed crews on Monday morning. One of the superintendents had a full crew show up Monday morning for the structural concrete, and the other person that was doing the underground, there wasn't one person that showed up. He was telling me nobody wants to work these days. And again, that's 20 years ago. And I was just struck by this difference in style and the outcome over time as I watched him over the years and got to that point where I realized there's value in having that trustful, reciprocal relationship where there's an exchange of the humanity part of it, the love, the empathy, the everything that goes on in a human relationship. And that at the end of the day, that will be more important than the details. Now, of course, you need to align yourself with talented people that can do the work that you want to do and all that. But the reality is nobody needs to be yelled at. Nobody needs to be micromanaged. If they're good, it's better to support and cheerlead and champion what they're doing, and you end up with a better result. So I went back farther than you asked, but that's probably the best example of what shaped my mind. And my wife is the same way in our approach to just the business, which is relationships, which is people. I mean, we do work too, but this podcast is about the other parts, and I really love it because that is what we think makes us tick and actually separates us. And it's I think why OpenRoad. I didn't mention this in my open, but we're poised for 2024 to be another amazing year, and there's various reasons for that. Don't need to go into now, but it's as excited as I've been for OpenRoad at every point along the way, because I love it. I have never been more excited about our future than I am today. It's a wonderful opportunity, and all those people that have been with us for years, decades, whatever, or not decades, but a decade, are also just as excited about their future. And so it's a wonderful journey. So I hope that answered your question on that.
Absolutely perfect. I don't care how far you go back. I'm just looking for what generated this concept of nurturing relationships. And I really appreciate you sharing not only the journey of OpenRoad, but also, what other leaders that are trying to evolve. And hopefully this is, something they can look at and think about. Are they being collaborative enough? Are they leading by fear? And really figuring out if their style is getting them the relationships they want. So Mark, thanks for being here, and thanks for really sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having me, Gene. I appreciate it.
So Mark and I talked about nurturing relationships. It's not news to you that relationships are a critical aspect of growth in your company. And it really does make a difference in the kind of company you're building. And do you want to come to work? I saw it on his face, the smile, the real passion he has for the work he does and the people he does it with. And I want to make sure that you understand it's not because it just happened by chance. It's because he believes in nurturing relationships. He talked about being a collaborative leader at the end. I love this distinction between authoritative style and collaborative style. It really does help you understand what he leans into as he's built this incredible company, if you will, that he has today. When you think of leadership and you think of growth think Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.